Before the new year arrives, before the noise, the countdown, the resolutions, and the promises to ourselves rise up again, I want to speak to you directly. Not as a stranger on a screen, not as a headline or a motivational slogan, but as someone who's seen ambition climb to impossible heights and crash just as fast. Someone who spent years learning the quiet truth about reinvention. It rarely looks dramatic from the outside, but it feels life-changing on the inside. And if you're between 50 and 75, I suspect you already know this. See, there's a moment in life where the calendar stops being a stretch of infinite opportunity and starts becoming something far more precious, far more personal. You begin measuring time not in years, but in meaning, in the people you love, in the dreams you still haven't let go of, even if they've gone quiet. And as this year fades, you might be wondering, is it too late for me? Is it too late to become who I wanted to be? Too late to change direction? Too late to heal or grow or start again? I'm here to tell you something essential, something I hope you will carry into the days ahead. It is not too late, not by a mile, but you must hear this before the new year starts. Let's begin. It's funny how life works. When I was younger, people assumed every breakthrough happened in a moment of triumph, some big moment, some dramatic turning point. But after decades in the automotive and space industries, I've learned this. The biggest shifts in life usually happen in silence. They happen when nobody's watching. They happen in the pauses between responsibilities. They happen when you're washing dishes, or driving alone, or lying awake at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering where the time went. And that silence, that reflection, is where your turning point begins. If you're in your 50s, 60s, or 70s, you've lived enough life to know that change doesn't come from fireworks. It comes from awareness, from noticing, really noticing what's no longer serving you, what you can no longer carry, what you can no longer ignore. Maybe you're feeling this right now. That strange mixture of gratitude and ache, that quiet awareness that you want your next chapter to look different from your last. And let me tell you something important. Awareness is not regret. Awareness is power. People often confuse the two. They think that looking back with honesty means something went wrong. It doesn't. It simply means you're awake enough to see where you've been and wise enough to imagine where you could go next. You see, many people at your age stop believing in turning points. They think the big chances, the bold moves, the personal transformations, those belong to the young. But that's not true. In fact, the turning point you're feeling might be the most meaningful one of your entire life. Because this time, you're not driven by ego. You're not chasing approval. You're not trying to impress anyone. You want to change because you're finally ready for it. And that makes you unstoppable. Let's break a myth that has held too many people hostage for far too long. There is no such thing as too late. Not in the way people fear it. What most people call too late is actually just discomfort. It's the uneasy feeling of stepping into something unfamiliar. It's the fear of not knowing whether you still have what it takes. It's the worry that you might fail in front of people who assume your story's already written. But hear me, your story's not finished. When I started building rockets, people said it was too late. The aerospace industry was too mature, too expensive, too complicated. I didn't have the background. I didn't have the legacy. I didn't have the approval of the experts, but I had one advantage. I didn't believe in too late. And many of the greatest accomplishments, mine and others, came long after society said the window had closed. You see, the world teaches younger people to be bold and older people to be cautious. But that's backwards. When you're older, you actually have more clarity. You know what matters. You know what doesn't. You know which risks are real and which are just noise. And that means you're not starting with a disadvantage. You're starting with an incredible advantage, perspective. People over 50 often underestimate the value of what they've learned over a lifetime. The emotional stability, the ability to focus, the resilience formed through real adversity, the wisdom earned through decades of trial and error. Those aren't small things. Those are superpowers. And yet, so many people talk themselves out of becoming who they want to be simply because the number on their birthday cake has changed. Let me ask you this. If a dream stays in your heart for decades, does that sound like something that expires? If a new direction keeps calling to you, does that sound like something meant for someone else? If you still feel the desire to grow, contribute, connect, or create, does that sound like too late? Of course not. Too late isn't a fact. It's a feeling. And feelings are not dictators. Feelings are signals. And the signal here is simple. You want more, and you're still capable of more. This new year is not a reminder of your limits. It's an invitation to your potential. Before you step into the new year, there's something essential you need to do, not for others, not for tradition, not because a calendar demands it, but because your spirit deserves it. You must put down the weight you've been carrying. And I know it's not easy. Some of that weight has been with you for so long that it feels like part of your identity. Some of it was handed to you by people who never understood the burden they placed on your shoulders. Some of it you picked up out of love, and some of it was forced onto you by circumstance, by loss, by disappointment, by life simply being harder than anyone warned you it would be. But here's what I want to tell you gently, respectfully, and with absolute honesty. Not everything that came with you deserves to go with you. You may be carrying old guilt, things you wish you'd done differently as a parent, a spouse, a friend. You may be carrying old expectations, dreams you thought you'd reach by 30 or 40 or 50 that didn't unfold the way you hoped. You may be carrying grief, quiet grief that you don't talk about because the world moves too fast to hold space for your sorrow. You may be carrying self-doubt, the kind that whispers, maybe I'm past my prime, maybe I don't have much left to offer, but none of that belongs in the next chapter of your life. Let me tell you something I've seen time and time again. People don't get stuck because the future is empty. They get stuck because the past is heavy. You cannot bring everything with you, and that's not failure. That's wisdom. Picture a rocket preparing for launch. Before liftoff, the engineers don't ask, how much can we pile onto this thing? No, they ask, what must we remove so the ship can rise? Your life is no different. You cannot soar if you're still chained to stories that no longer fit who you are becoming. And maybe you've lived with those stories for so long that you've forgotten something important. You have the authority to rewrite them. You survived things you shouldn't have survived. You adapted to things you didn't ask for. You overcame things you didn't deserve. You held people together when you were quietly falling apart. Why would you carry shame for that? Why would you punish yourself for being human? Why would you drag old pain through a doorway meant for possibility? This is not the year for carrying what weighs you down. This is the year for carrying what lifts you up. Release the guilt, release the fear, release the outdated version of yourself. You've earned the right to walk lighter, and the moment you put down what no longer belongs, you'll feel something surprising. Space. Space for new experiences. Space for a new identity. Space for new joy. Space for the version of you that's been waiting decades for permission to breathe. Put the weight down. Not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong enough to move forward without it. Now let's talk about something that often gets overlooked in conversations about aging, especially in America and Europe, where youth is celebrated loudly and experience is appreciated quietly. Let me say this clearly. You still have extraordinary value the world desperately needs. And I'm not talking about nostalgia or memories or wisdom in some abstract philosophical sense. I'm talking about real, practical, powerful contributions that only people your age can make. You have perspective that younger generations couldn't buy with all the money in the world. You know what it feels like to make a mistake and recover. You know what it feels like to lose someone and still move forward. You know what it feels like to build a life piece by piece, not with shortcuts or instant gratification, but with patience and perseverance. Your age isn't a limitation. Your age is a qualification. Think about how much, instinctively now, the things you used to stress over in your 20s or 30s that hardly even faze you today. That calmness, that confidence, that emotional regulation, it matters more than ever. The world is unstable right now. People are overwhelmed. Young people feel lost in ways they don't always admit. And whether you realize it or not, you're part of the generation that knows how to steady the ship. You are the bridge between discipline and innovation, between tradition and possibility, between what humanity has learned and what it has yet to discover. That role is not small. That role is not outdated. That role is not replaceable. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is that their value decreases with age. But in every meaningful industry I've been part of, from engineering to manufacturing to aerospace, the most invaluable mentors were never the ones fresh out of school. They were the seasoned veterans. The ones who'd lived enough years to know what truly matters, what truly works, what truly lasts. You're in that category now. And if you doubt it, let me ask you something. How many people in your life, family, friends, colleagues have leaned on your advice? How many moments have you helped someone through simply by being steady, patient, grounded? How many situations have you prevented from turning into disasters because you sensed the truth before anyone else saw it? That's not random. That's not luck. That's accumulated wisdom. And the truth is, you are entering one of the most powerful decades of influence. Your words carry weight. Your presence brings stability. Your insight saves people time, money, and heartache. But here's the important part. The world benefits from your value only if you recognize it first. You cannot contribute what you keep hidden. You cannot shine if you dim your own light. You cannot mentor, build, create, or lead if you assume you're past your peak. You're not past anything. You're standing at the threshold of something entirely new, and maybe, just maybe, this upcoming year is the moment where your years of experience finally align with your sense of purpose. Imagine that. Imagine the impact you could still make. Imagine the joy, the fulfillment, the meaning that's still available to you. Your story is not fading. Your story is deepening, and the world still needs the chapter you haven't written yet. One of the most surprising things I've learned in my career and in my life is that massive transformation doesn't begin with massive action. It begins with one decision. Just one. A single moment when something inside you becomes non-negotiable. People think change requires a full plan, a perfect strategy, or a crystal clear roadmap. But every major step I've taken, building a company, risking everything, stepping into industries people said were impossible, began with a decision long before I had the details figured out. And this applies to you right now more than ever. Because the truth is, at your age, you don't need more time. You need more clarity. And clarity comes from deciding who you want to be in this next chapter, deciding what you will no longer tolerate emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, deciding that your life is still worth improving, not because something is wrong, but because something inside you is waking up again. A single decision can tilt the entire direction of your future. Maybe the decision is to take your health seriously, not out of fear, but out of respect for the life still ahead of you. Maybe it's to reconnect with someone you've drifted away from, someone whose absence you feel more deeply than you admit. Maybe it's to start a project you've been postponing for years, a book, a business, a garden, a community effort. Maybe it's to learn something new, not because you have to, but because curiosity is still alive in you. Maybe it's simply to show yourself the kindness you've always reserved for others. Decisions don't need to be dramatic. They need to be genuine, and once you make one, just one, you ignite momentum. Momentum that builds quietly at first, then powerfully, until suddenly you look back and realize your entire life shifted because of a choice you made on an ordinary day. That's the beauty of reinvention. It doesn't require the world's permission, only your own. So as the new year approaches, ask yourself, what decision could I make today that my future self would thank me for? Not a list of resolutions. Not a series of promises you'll forget by February. Just one decision. One decision can create a ripple that becomes a wave. And that wave can carry you into the most meaningful chapter of your life. Before the year turns over, before the noise and celebration, before the world starts shouting about resolutions and goals, there is something I want you to hear. Something I want you to keep close, not just in your mind, but in your heart. Your next chapter will not be defined by your age. It will be defined by your courage. Courage to hope again, courage to begin again, courage to believe, even quietly, that life still has extraordinary things left for you. Too many people talk themselves out of joy because they believe they've run out of time, but you haven't. You're not behind, you're not done, you're not fading into the background of your own story. You are entering a season of wisdom, clarity, intention, and depth. A season where you understand what truly matters. A season where you're finally free from the pressure to prove anything. A season where you can choose purpose over noise, peace over chaos, authenticity over obligation. You're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience. Think about how powerful that is. The younger generations are sprinting. You're moving in a direction with intention, with awareness of how precious each moment really is. And you don't need the approval of the world to begin again. You only need the courage to take one step. So before this year ends, give yourself permission to become someone new, or to finally become the person you were always meant to be. Your past shaped you, your experiences strengthened you, but your future is still open. And the story waiting for you is not smaller than the story behind you. It might just be bigger. Before we finish today, I want to speak to you with complete sincerity. Not as an entrepreneur, not as someone who's built companies or taken risks, but as a human being who has watched life unfold in unpredictable, painful, beautiful, humbling ways. Thank you. Thank you for surviving every season that tried to break you. Thank you for choosing growth even when it felt uncomfortable. Thank you for showing up today for yourself, not for me. Thank you for being part of a generation that has carried more than you were ever acknowledged for. You are not a background character in this world. You are a pillar of it. And the next year of your life is not a countdown to anything ending. It is a countdown to something beginning, a chapter defined not by fear, but by intention. Not by age, but by courage. Not by what you've lost, but by what you're still capable of creating. You have more wisdom than you once had, more clarity than you once had, more strength than you once had. And do you know what that means? It means your life is not winding down. It's focusing. So as you step into the new year, I want you to carry this truth with you. You are not too late. You are right on time to grow, right on time to heal, right on time to reconnect, right on time to reinvent, right on time to become the version of yourself you've quietly dreamed about. The world still needs your voice, your insight, your presence, your steadiness, your compassion, your humanity. And I'm grateful, truly grateful that you allowed me to walk alongside you today. So go, step into this next year, not with hesitation, but with confidence. Not with fear, but with purpose. Not waiting for life to change, but creating the change yourself. Your next chapter starts now, and I believe in you.